Native Plants in the Landscape, Alberta, by Madison Lizzie, Rachel Bergen, and Abney Gill.
With the ecological footprint of humans, many natural landscapes become overrun by homes and communities. Integrating native plants into your landscape help create and restore natural habitat for insects and wildlife. Knowing how to do this successfully is beneficial for us and wildlife. This presentation is used to provide information and guidelines on how to integrate the native plants in Alberta successfully in your landscape. There's no solid definition of native plant species that everyone can agree on, but the definition that has the most agreements is the native, meaning indigenous, originating in a certain place. Three applications that complicate this is the geological distribution of the species, which is the natural arrangement and apportionment of the various forms of plants in different regions. Changes in distribution through time and genetic vulnerability among species. The successibility of most plants affected by biotic and abiotic factors due to similarities in genotypes. Native plants have been used for many different purposes for thousands of years. Many indigenous peoples of Canada use these plants for food and medicine. Now they are still used for those things. Integrating them into your landscape can help restore wildlife and their habitats. An example of a native plant use in Alberta is the green roof at the Barrie Architecture office building in Red Deer, Alberta.
Benefits versus liabilities in implementing a specialty landscape. For benefits, saving water. Once established, native plants require little to no irrigation beyond normal rainfall. Low maintenance. Low maintenance landscaping techniques go well with native species that have already adapted to their surroundings. One should expect to use less water, little to no fertilizer, next to no pesticides, less pruning, and less of their time in the garden. Pesticide freedom. Many pests and diseases have acquired natural defenses in native plants. Beneficial insects become secondary victims in the combat against pests, since most insecticides kill indiscriminately. Pesticide use is reduced or eliminated, allowing natural pest control to take over and keep garden toxins out of our rivers and watersheds. Wildlife viewing. Native plants, birds, butterflies, beneficial insects, and interesting critters are made for each other. Support local ecology. Gardens, small and large, can provide a bridge to the nearby remaining wildlands. Disadvantages of using native plants. Neighbors. It is possible that neighbors will object to the decision to let someone's yard go. Native gardens can have an untidy and sloppy appearance. It might be a source of tension if the plants dominate the walkway, as plants and shrubs should not be allowed to grow on the pavements. They can attract pests. While the objective of a native garden is to create a safe haven for local wildlife, it can also serve as a haven for pests like voles, mice, rats, and bats. Although bats in the attic and voles in the garden may be vital for the ecology, your neighbors may not enjoy them. Difficult to find. Some native plants may be difficult to come by at the local garden center, and when you do, they may be more expensive. The viability of a landscape. Native plants, viability of a landscape. Although non-native plants can provide animals with shelter, nesting grounds, and some food, native plants sustain a higher diversity and amount of wildlife, including the bees, butterflies, and birds that we love to see in our gardens. The ability of native plants to support native insects is a key difference. Plant-eating insects have evolved with native plants so that they may overcome some of their defenses while avoiding other plants. Many of these insects are quite unique, or at least in the larvae stage, and they will only be able to eat one type of plant or a small group of plants. And native insects are unaccustomed to non-native plants, and they may find them unpleasant. Our insects have not adapted to them and are unable to overcome their chemical defenses in order to devour and feed on them. As a result, when we have non-native plants in our gardens and parks, we have less insects and birds who rely on them for food.
Processes and applications. Knowing and understanding the landscape you are working in to integrate native plants is very important. The guidelines provide a clear, consistent, and integrated information package about using native plants throughout Alberta. These guidelines are not prescriptive. Site-specific circumstances have to be considered along with land use objectives and landowners' preferences. Some objectives include encourage the eventual establishment of native plant communities with native landscapes, Promote the use of native species in the revegetation of disturbed sites within native plant communities within the green and white areas of Alberta. Promote consistency of native plant material use among regulatory jurisdictions, and acknowledge the site-specific role of non-native species to meet short-term revegetation objectives or meet accepted land use needs.
Landscaping with native plants. Planning a native plant project includes various steps. Setting goals and objectives. Evaluating the site includes soil type, topography, climate, and microclimate of a region. Choosing the appropriate plant species, understanding the importance of genetics, active restoration, sources of seed, weed-free native hay from a native grassland or wetland, sources of a plant, salvage plant, selecting plant product type, micropropagation, selecting the suitable supplier, plant material supplier, and seed supplier, and evaluating plant material aftercare.
Native landscapes can be categorized into 6 regions in Alberta. The grassland, which is yellow, the parkland, which is orange, the foothills, which is lilac, the boreal forest, which is green, the Rocky Mountains is the purple, and the Canadian Shield, which is pink. The grassland region is located in southeastern Alberta. Most native plants are grasses, as they do not need as much water as forested areas. The parkland region has small streams and wetlands located in central Alberta. This is home to many native plants, and a common one is cattails. The foothills are located east of the Rocky Mountains. This region is home to many trees, including white birch and the balsam poplar. With the boreal forest and Canadian Shield can be located in the northeastern area of Alberta and part of the parkland and grasslands. The Rocky Mountains are west and include native plants such as yarrow and prickly rose.
So the parkland region. Focusing on central Alberta, we will be specifically looking at the parkland native plant region and the grasslands. 78.2% is the total human footprint on the parkland region. With that being said, it is important to know how to integrate plants like the chokecherry and snowberry into your landscape. Along with this, it is important to promote native plants and their benefits to the community. When planting grassland native plants, it is important to know how exactly they are integrated into a specialty landscape, as they will require the same environmental factors such as the soil type, the moisture content, and the light intensities as they would in a regular grassland.
Some native species to Alberta are annuals such as brown-eyed Susan, great-flowered gaillardia, and fireweed, and some perennials are asters, buffalo beans, clematis, lemon mint, and pearl yarrow. Moving on to the trees and shrubs are Saskatoon berry, paper birch, dogwood, and willows, and flowers such as baby's breath and anise hyssop.
Design phase, using nature as a model. Identifying components associated with the specialty landscape such as legislation, design, and materials. Here we will provide design and material examples as well as any regulations that accompany using native and non-invasive plant species. Starting with the design phase, using nature as a model allows for nature to fall naturally into the landscape. For natural systems, you should recycle everything, water, waste, and nutrients back into the new life, are diverse and therefore dynamically stable. They tend to recover from pests, weather, etc. Are defined by the resources, the sun, the soil, the water, available on site, and have inherent beauty, elegance, complexity, and balance.
Choosing the right plant for the right place. Some tips on how to choose this is select plant varieties that will thrive in your site's conditions, sun, soil, and water, the local climate, and that grow well together. Select for low maintenance needs, low water and fertilizer needs after establishment, high resistance to pests to eliminate chemical use, and minimal mowing or pruning needs. Select based on mature size and minimize pruning.
Fit the design to the site. Assess site soils, sun exposure, drainage, water table, grading, and slope stability issues. Consider adjacent uses, nearby sensitive areas such as wetlands and waterways or slopes, wildlife uses, Identify existing vegetation and preserve, especially the root rot areas, wherever possible. Involve owners and end users in fitting the intended uses into the site's conditions, and involve landscape maintenance staff or maintenance expert early in the design process.
Fitting the design to the site allows for native plants to adapt to the new habitat. This includes everything up from above and to start with the soil and design for water conservation. The building phase. The building phase is an important phase. With this comes diligence, making sure you plant right and minimize impacts to maximize benefits. Planting right allows the plant to thrive in its environment.
Operation and maintenance. Start right plant establishment. Build the soil for healthier plants. Use integrated pest, disease, and weed management to promote plant health. Replace problem plants, prune less, thin and mulch more. Maintain turf stability. Water smart for irrigation savings. Make space for nature. Train and support staff and users for long-term success.
Thank you for watching. Hearts and love.